Hi folks, welcome back. Thank you for watching. Please do hit subscribe if you haven't done so yet. It really does help when you do that. So, welcome to the end of month Q&A video for February 2022. It's been a really busy month on YouTube and I've got loads of your comments to get through as per usual. So let's see who is up first this month. Mark Greenfield. Those OX4s sound really good to me. These have different magnet and wind options when ordering these pickups from the company. Do you know what type you were playing? These are the OX4 PAF replicas and mine are the Alnico 4 low winds. Actually, I think mine might be medium wind, can't remember. But the Alnico 4 low wind PAFs are Mark's standard PAF. You can choose any magnet, you can choose low, medium, high wind, and the other kind of more specific models he does, like the Hot Dwaynes and the Beanos and things like that. But the Alnico 4 low wind PAFs are his kind of standard PAF replicas that everybody raves about, so that's what mine are. Monkey Magic. Cheers Joe, appreciate you taking time to make the vids. Have you thought about doing a vid where you try high gain amps? Maybe a fun one and something different. Maybe borrow a dual rectifier and an EMG equipped BC Rich. I mean, that would be an absolute bloodbath because I've tried playing high gain stuff before and I just can't do it. It's just an absolute mess when I try and play high gain. I don't even know anyone I could borrow something like that off, to be honest. If any guitar shop out there wants to lend me a BC Rich and a Mezza, then I might try giving it a go. But yeah, I don't think I'll be spending my own money to try and source that stuff anytime soon because I just cannot play that sort of equipment whatsoever. Zach McKelvey. I had the chance to grab an orange Retro 50 the other day, but I had absolutely no info about them. RE, never heard of it. I found your videos and gear posts in my research and found them incredibly helpful in showing what it could do through a variety of guitars. My Retro 50 should be showing up on my door sometime this week. So excited, thank you for the great videos. Well, this is amazing because it really surprised me when I was looking at the Retro 50. There are basically no good videos out there or much information about that amp whatsoever. So I took a bit of a punt on it, going for it, and absolutely loved it, as you know, and I've made lots of videos using that amp. So to actually hear that someone's sort of been helped on their journey in finding a Retro 50 by that video is amazing to hear. So thank you for that comment, Zach, really means a lot. Mike Zate, aka Dr. Z. Very nice, Joe. Layering the pedals together sure is the acid test of how an amp handles pedals. And I made a video with my Dr. Z Z Master and my big pedal board because in the original demo I did of that amp, I just plugged guitars into the front end and cranked it up. I didn't use any pedals, but a lot of you wanted to hear how it takes pedals in the front end. So I sort of put my entire pedal board at it, stacked loads of things together at the end, and it took it beautifully well. So even though it's an old school Tweed circuit, slightly tweaked, but even though those circuits are typically known for sagging out as soon as you put anything in the front end, the Z Master takes pedals spectacularly. Enrico Palazza. I love Enrico's big list of questions we get every month. I love these. I have a few. That amp is pure rock and roll, Joe, and it takes pedals extremely well, even when you combine to multiple gain stages. Exactly. Really loves to be boosted into. I have a few questions regarding amps. Number one, you have a gig and you can bring 2 amps with you and one is the Z Master. What would you bring with you as a complementary amp with the Z Master? Probably something British voiced, because with being a sort of a Fender Tweed circuit and having 10-inch speakers, it is quite mid-focus, has a lovely high end on it, but it's all about that kind of snarly mid-range. So I would probably bring something British, probably quite thick. The JTM 45 or the Orange Retro 50, to be honest, something like that to kind of fill that low end in and add the sort of the 12-inch thump to go with the snarly mid-range of the 10-inch speakers, so something like that. Number 2, I know you have the Cornell Romany, but why are you not a fan of low wattage amps? I'm talking about 5-watt amps like the Tweed Champ, Super 1606 and so on. I'm not a fan of low wattage amps. I love my Cornell Romany and that's only a 10-watt amp. So I do like low wattage amps. I think for me, the higher the wattage amp, it tends to hold onto the low end better. Things like a sort of 5-watt amp do tend to flub out a little bit and not push too much low end because you need the extra wattage to shift those very powerful low end frequencies. And also low wattage amps tend to come with smaller speakers. So like I think the original Champ had like a 6-inch speaker in it or something, and you won't get too much low end out of that. So 12-inch speakers with sort of mid-powered amps seems to give me the amount of low end that I want. But it's not that I don't like small combo amps at all. I just only have the Romany, and you know, the other amps I have here are sort of mid-powered. So it's not that I don't like them. And number 3, there is a school of thought that says half stacks lack mids, and those guitarists combine their JTM45/Plexis with low wattage amps to increase the mid content, since low watt amps have a more mid-focused tones. Your thought on this subject? Depends on the amp, I guess. I mean, I've never particularly found my JTM45, for example, lacking in mid-range. It has that sort of snarly upper mid-range that Marshalls are known for. I mean, I have heard of people pairing kind of powerful amps with a tiny amp and sort of balancing the mic levels out so they complement each other. I might make a video about that soon. Take my JTM45 and the Romany and see how it sounds. So I might try that. But I've never really gone down that route because I'd never really find something like a JTM45 particularly lacking in mids, for me at least anyway. But I might try that. H. Garcia. Joe, have you tried Dave Stevens' take on the old Broadcaster bridge pickup? I think you'd like it very much. I've heard a lot about Dave's pickups, and I did make a few inquiries with him last year, I think, about his PAFs. They're huge money, but they're said to be, along with things like the throwback SLE 101s, like the best PAFs replicas out there. And I made a few inquiries, but I didn't go with it. The main reason is he has a massive waiting list that he can't tell you how long the waiting list is. They're very, very expensive, and he demands full payment up front. So I didn't really feel comfortable with paying him $600 or whatever it was, with no guarantee of when or if you might receive pickups, aside from it's some years. Yeah, you go with someone like Throwback and they can deliver it like the week after. So it's always the business model that's put me off. But no, I haven't. I would love to check out some of Dave's pickups. I just can't really bring myself to commit that amount of money with no real sort of guarantees of when you might expect to receive something. So that's the only reason that's why I've really been put off by it, and the cost. Mark Zug. It was great hearing you play the Revival Drive, a pedal I've never played but always sounds astonishing in demos. Also seems a bit polarising, with some expecting a more standard OD, others saying it doesn't play nicely with single coils. From what I've heard, the makers must be the huge nerd wizards when it comes to analogue electronics. Well, yes, Origin Effects are huge analogue nerd wizards. The Revival Drive is a weird one, and I've heard different things from different people, and the impression I get, and I haven't tried this particular pedal myself, is that the Revival Drive that has like the extra front panel on it, it's like £100 more and gives you extra EQ. That's the one people seem to say there's something in the top end they don't like about it. The Revival Drive that I had, because I've sold it now, it wasn't the custom, it was just like the standard Revival Drive, and I didn't find it lacking or like overly hyped in the top end at all. It played really well with single coils. It was a little bit dark, if anything. So I think maybe that front panel changed the sound in some way, but it was a really, really nice pedal. The only reason I sold it was A, I got really into tube pedals, and I had tube overdrives that were doing similar things to what the Revival Drive was giving me. B, because I got really into just cranking amps up. So why use a Marshall in a box overdrive when you've got a JTM45 clone that you can crank up and use the real thing. And the other thing that I struggled with a little bit with the Revival Drive was you really had to crank the volume, which wasn't the output, that was the gain control. You had to really crank the gain to bring the output level kind of up to unity. And as I like to run it, which was fairly clean with the gain kind of down 9 o'clock and below, you struggle to get the pedal up to unity volume, and I wanted it to be just above unity, and I could never quite get there without having the gain higher than I really wanted it. So it wasn't really working for me in that sense. So for those reasons, I got shot at the pedal, and I think I used the money to buy a couple of Kingsleys. So yeah, it's a fantastic pedal. I've heard the Revival Drive Compact and the Hot Rod and things have kind of tweaked the output level. I've heard that. I can't vouch for that myself, but that's what I've heard on the grapevine. Joe Staup. I have had several tube preamps, including the Kingsley, Cuda and others, but this one is really something. Nice and powerful and punchy. Nice riffing there too. Well, thank you, Joe. And this is the Tubesteader Sunkeeper, and this is probably one of, if not the biggest video from February. a lot of love for that pedal, and I can see why. It's a wonderful sounding thing. And the channel 1 on it, the sort of clean channel, it does add a really nice top end sparkle to things. It's there, you know, you can push the amp with it, but it's kind of a sort of tone conditioner to me. But that channel too, the gain channel, is astonishing. It's probably my favourite high gain overdrive distortion I've ever played, and as soon as I'd finished demoing the pedal, I rebuilt my pedal board to include the Sunkeeper because it's that good, and I didn't want to be without that channel too. So it is a fantastic pedal. Got a few more questions on the Sunkeeper here. Brian Cullen, this sounds absolutely fantastic. I see what you mean by Vox-like clean channel. Yeah, it has that kind of like bell-like chime in the top end. Really, really nice. Was it the Rockreverb Mark 1, 2 or 3? It's the Mark 1 that they went with for the Sunkeeper. And again, I've never actually played a original Rockreverb amp, but from what I've heard, the Mark 1 was amazing. The Mark 2 made some changes that people didn't necessarily like, and the Mark 3 is kind of getting back towards what the Mark 1 was, but again has a few changes that people prefer the Mark 1 over. So I think from what Ollie at Tubesteader said to me, the Mark 1 had more mids compared to the 2 and 3, and the Sunkeeper definitely has a lot of mids. So I think he made the right call on that front because it just works so well as a high gain overdrive. I'm not a high gain player, but I cannot get enough of the Sunkeeper. It's really, really great. Enrico Palazzo again. Of all the tube pedals you've demoed, Joe, this is the one for me. I loved that intro tune, and I think it should become a staple on your videos because you're a great player and have improved a lot over the years. Well, I needed to. Also, great job on bass, and it sounded really cool, super overdriven. Yeah, I did do that little intro jam, and that isn't something I would typically do on pedal demos for a few different reasons. A, it takes a long time to put like the jam together, like longer than the rest of the video, and also because a lot of other people do that, so it's not necessarily for me to do it because you can get that elsewhere. And also I always prefer to show how the pedal sounds in isolation because you can use much more full frequency sounds and really show off everything the pedal can do rather than trying to sculpt sounds that work with bass and drums and all that sort of stuff. So I don't usually do the intro jam for that reason, but at the start of this month I had COVID, so I was stuck in this room for 10 days with nothing to do. So I had an extra day to put a jam together, so I did that for the Sunkeeper. I might do it again in the future, probably not in every video I do, but you know, see how timing goes. I'm always quite pushed for time nowadays with various things I'm doing, so you know, the videos have to kind of slot in around the other work I do, but you know, if I get a bit of free time, I might do another jam. It was quite fun. I really enjoyed putting that together, actually. It was great. Peeve. Joe, I have the Beekeeper and would love to hear a comparison to determine whether there is enough tonal differences to acquire the Sunkeeper. By the way, do you like being addressed as Joe or Perky? Love your videos. Either, I don't mind. Most people call me Joe, but on this channel people call me Perky. Either's fine, I don't really mind. In terms of the Beekeeper versus the Sunkeeper, they're very, very, very different pedals. So if you're worried that there might not be enough crossover, there definitely is. The Beekeeper to me is a sort of low to medium gain type pedal. It's quite a thin sounding pedal to have to kind of balance your clean signal with the sound of the pedal into your amp. I had to have the bass control all the way up, and I think it was still shelving off a bit of low end then. So it's not a super thick pedal in the way that the Sunkeeper is. And to me, the Sunkeeper is all about that channel 2, that kind of high gain monstrous sound, whereas the Beekeeper is that sort of mid-focused, dumbly, low gain, very dynamic thing. They are very, very different pedals. I probably won't make a video comparing the two because they are so different, so it wouldn't really show much aside from the fact they are worlds apart. But I wouldn't worry about any potential crossover and whether it's worth getting one if you have the other. They are both astonishing things. So the Sunkeeper especially gets my vote. Cower's Music, very good intro, interesting video. Do you know where I can get these pedals in Europe or Germany? You can only get Tubesteader pedals direct from Ollie at Tubesteader in Canada. So you kind of have to import them, so you are subject to like import duties if you're outside of Canada/US. But Ollie does ship all over the world and really, really quickly as well. I think he sent out my Sunkeeper on like a Tuesday and it arrived here in the UK on the Thursday morning. It was like less than 48 hours. It was amazing. So you have to buy it direct from Tubesteader, but it's not a big problem. You might get a few extra fees on top of it, but that's just the nature of buying from abroad, unfortunately. Sean Ida Miller, outstanding video, Joe. Thanks, Sean. I really appreciate your scientific approach to this. It's a breath of fresh air in contrast to all the misinformation and anecdotal evidence put forth on sites like the Gear page. Thank you. So this was looking into YouTube compression, and when people say, oh, I've got no idea what this pedal sounds like because of YouTube compression, is that actually true? And hopefully that video showed that YouTube audio is, it does compress down from like a raw WAV file, but it's pretty much fine. It's equivalent to listening to a song on iTunes compared to the original studio 24-bit recording. It's fine in 99% of circumstances. It does lose a little bit of detail and top end especially, but it's not bad. It doesn't give you a false impression of anything. Comparing it to the original unprocessed WAV, it doesn't sound like a different recording. It's pretty much the same. So that was the point of the video. So thank you for that comment, Sean. Mark Zug. Yes, the wildly erratic production quality among YouTube uploaders is the real YouTube compression. Thanks for this lesson / experiment. Are you by chance a college professor? You'd make a good one. By chance, I'm not a college professor. I don't think I have the intelligence to even think about that. But I'm glad the explanation came through anyway. I very much doubt there's a college course in, guitar effects pedals. But yeah, I think, as I kind of alluded to at the end of that video, I think when people say YouTube compression as being a problem, they're probably listening to slightly dodgy engineering on the part of the person who's putting the demo together. And I do get the impression on places such as the Gear page that 99% of people talking about YouTube compression, how it ruins audio, have probably never recorded audio and uploaded it to YouTube, and they're hearing a thick low end that lots of demo people will put in there and thinking that's an artifact of the audio processing rather than as it was recorded with microphones. So I think people are kind of mistaking engineering for YouTube compression, and that's where that whole myth comes from. But YouTube audio, especially if you're listening in, I upload my videos in 1080. If you're you're watching it back in 1080, the audio is broadly equivalent. I think if you go down to 480 and 360 and 240, that will reduce the audio quality too. But as long as you're listening in 1080 or above, then it's pretty much fine. There's nothing to worry about really. The 92 Project. I got my power driver today and wow, being 100% honest, I didn't think it was going to be as good as it is. Very unique character, loving it. Of course, bought it after watching this video, thank you. Well, I'm glad you chose to check out Nick's pedals after watching my video, because Nick makes astounding pedals. And I think the overall kind of lesson to learn from your comment is never doubt Nick Williams, because I think I've tried every pedal he makes now. He now makes a Mark 1.5 tone bender. I haven't tried that yet. I'll hopefully try it soon. But I think I've tried pretty much everything from his entire range, and they are all some of the best pedals I've ever played, especially of their type, like the tone benders. They are my favourite. The Mark 1 tone bender that Nick makes is my favourite fuzz I have ever set eyes on or ears on or touched myself. It is just amazing. So if you're in the market for fuzz and want to explore some different options to the sort of the solar sound stuff and that, check out Nick's pedals. He just makes the best stuff out there, in my opinion, when it comes to things like tone benders. Brilliant. DRS RSV. Review their DS55 pickups. Super unique, and I don't think there are any videos on them. And I'm guessing this is the throwback DS55s. I would love to check those out, but they're ridiculous money, and I can't afford them. So if anyone at Throwback is watching, I very much doubt you are, or if anybody knows anyone at Throwback, please do feel free to throw my name in the pot. I would love to check these pickups out. But pretty much everything you see on this channel, probably 60% of it, is stuff that I have to buy myself to make content with. A few manufacturers I do work with to kind of bring you videos, but it's largely content that I have to kind of fund myself. So unfortunately I can't afford to blow $600 or whatever it is on a set of Throwbacks to make that video for you. But if anyone wants to lend me a set of their Throwbacks, please feel free. I would love to try them out. Chris B. Hey Joe, awesome video, love the board, thank you. If you were got invited to a last minute sit-in, what would be your must-have pedals types and your go-to ones? I would want an overdrive, and I'd probably go with the Kingsley Jester because it has the overdrive and the boost, and you can stack them together or just use one, and it's probably my favourite overdrive I've ever played. The Kingsley Jester with the sizzle mod is just astonishing, so I'd probably go with that for an overdrive. I would want a delay, probably the Analog Man ARDX20, again because you've got the two sides of it, so you can kind of have two delays in one pedal, and it's voiced beautifully. And I'd probably want a modulation, because I love cheesy 80s guitar sounds, but also for clean sounds, just having a bit of movement is really nice. Probably go with a chorus, probably the Analog Man mini chorus, I'm guessing, but something, you know, on my original Dimension C, that's amazing too. I wouldn't necessarily put a vintage pedal on my board because I want to look after them, but you know, an old chorusy modulation or something inspired by that is probably what I would go with. So yeah, with those 3 pedals you can do most things with. Franklin Quixote, I think. Hopefully I've pronounced your name right, Franklin. Bro, great sound. Thank you. I need help. I just bought a Gretch G3140 orange hollow body. Nice. I like to swap the bridge and just leave alone the neck pickup because I will be using this in church. I'm a worshipper. Like to play Leland Christian Band. Question, the original pickup is much on treble, but I'm looking for lots of bass and mids, warmer and some highs. What would you recommend? Thanks, bro. Keep playing on new pickup. Will do that. That's the TV Jones Ray Butts Full Fidelity Filtertron, which is just amazing. In terms of what changes you would make to your guitar, if you like your neck pickup but you want more sort of lows, mids, 2 things you could try there. Lower value pots, that would take some of the top end off and leave you with more mids and lows, so you would kind of, you know, yin and yang it a little bit and give you a slightly warmer sound overall. Or you could try a different pickup. You know, Filtertrons do vary a lot, and the vintage spec ones are very bright. They're low in DC resistance. I think the TV Jones that I was using in that video has a DC resistance of like 4 or something. They're very low and they're very sort of bright and chimey. The higher output ones that TV Jones make and others, as you kind of up the DC resistance of a pickup, and this is a very sort of general sort of rule, not even a rule here, it's just like a sort of overall sort of theory. The higher the DC resistance, the less bright the pickup sounds. It'll be more kind of, you know, it'll drive the amp harder and it'll be a little less bright in the top end. So a higher output pickup could be what you're looking for there. But, you know, experiment with pots or learn to love your tone control. Just kind of ride a bit of that treble off and you'll achieve much the same effect as changing the pots. So, you know, there's a few things you could try there, but you might want a different pickup in your Gretch if you don't like the sound that much. Kira Barsmith. Nice, I was waiting for this one since the Kalluna is my favourite pedal next to the shallow water. Sounds sweet through your rig. I might even buy a second one for my drum machine because it saturates beats to perfection too. I've never tried it on anything other than guitar. I might have to experiment. Yes, this is the Vahlbruch Kaluna, and a huge amount of love for this pedal in the comments. There's a couple more coming up in a second. It is an amazing pedal, and you know, you can definitely tell it's been designed by, what is Henning, like a professor of theoretical physics or something, like a very, very bright bloke. So designing a simple overdrive pedal, you know, wasn't really stretching his brain power. I get that impression anyway, because it is just voiced to perfection, very martially in its nature, and yeah, it's just really nice. It's definitely up there with Kingsley and Effectrode and Hageman and other tube pedals I've tried. Wonderful, wonderful sounding thing, and much like the Tubesteader Sunkeeper, it's gone straight on my pedal board. I can't live without that pedal now. Mark Zug, again. Oh, Perky, you're really wanting me to spend my money. Some very nice textures here, and do never stop using the middle pickup selector in your demo. So many people ignore those gorgeous planky tones. I love the middle pickups position on like a Les Paul, especially with the neck volume rolled back just slightly to kind of clean the low end up just a tiny bit. The middle position on my Les Paul is one of my favourites. You know, some PAF humbuckers, middle position. It's kind of thin and phasey. It's a little bit second position on the Strat, but it's just really, really nice. I love it a lot. Charles Coker. I just got one yesterday. Man, what a pedal. I tried it in front of my Friedman Dirty Shirley 40 set clean, and it sounds absolutely killer. Like, hard to distinguish between it and the DS40 preamp. That is high praise for sure. I got it mainly to build a small jam board for when I don't want or can't use my amp and main board. Also sounds fantastic in front of the Strymon Iridium Direct. Exactly, it is one of those pedals that just interfaces with the front end of an amp beautifully well. And as I said in that video, for me, where it sounds its best is when you're gaining it up, but also pushing the output level just a little bit into the amp. So you're kind of getting the tube saturation from the Kalluna, and you're pushing your power tubes in your amp just over the edge. It really does sound and feel like an extension of your amp. It's like a channel 2. It is really, really lovely. So please do check that out. It's a fantastic pedal. And finally this month, Zach D. How do you feel about the speaker in a Tweed Deluxe? And this is the Scumbag S75 PVC, which is a kind of old Celestian silver / blue type thing. I haven't tried it in a sort of Tweed amp myself, but there is a video coming, I think it's the first video up in March, so it'll be the 5th of March, comparing the Celestian Blue and the Jensen P12R, those two Alnico speakers, in my Cornell Romany. And the Scumbag is along a similar line to the Celestian Blue. So check that video out, it might help you decide on how the Scumbag would work in your amp. But that Scumbag sounds really, really good in pretty much every amp I've ever tried it in. So it's a really, really nice speaker. A little bit less kind of hyped in the upper mids than your standard Celestian, but you know, it just sounds great. So I would say it sounds amazing, but check that video out, it might help answer a question or two on that front for you. So there we are, folks. Thank you ever so much for watching. I do love doing these end of month Q&As, and thank you for all your comments and questions that come in throughout the month. I try to get back to everybody in the comment section, but the most, not necessarily the most interesting, but the most relevant comments to a wider audience I try and pick out to do these Q&A videos with. So any more questions, drop them underneath this video or comment under any video in March, and I'll try and address them at the end of March Q&A. So thank you ever so much for watching, folks. Please do carry on subscribing. I know I always say it, but it makes a big difference when you do that. And I will see you very, very soon. Bye-bye.